Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and I hope all of you had a great weekend. You did something fun. I know that for a lot of places out here on the East Coast, it was generally the first time that, it was decent weather. So, again, hopefully you got out there, got some sun, and, just enjoyed yourselves. And you came back ready to go for another full week of Computer America. So, of course, the first thing we want to mention is that our guest today is a company that, hey, longtime listeners, we've had them on here a couple of times and happy to have them back on as we talk about, a lot of different products that they have. But joining us today is a company called D-Link, and they really do everything for your networking needs, be it home, business, or anything aside. But hey, if you want to know about routers, today is the show for you because we are going to be covering one of the best on the market with D-Link. So stay tuned for that. Second part of the show will be dedicated to computer and technology news, and that is where we cover everything and anything having to do with technology. So, hey, newest stories, latest developments, products, things like that. All of it will be covered in the second part of the show. So, and hey, if you miss anything that we talk about here today, if you want to link to our guest website or just really anything that we do here at Computer America, check it out at computeramerica.com. There you'll find a link to the live video stream as well as the social media contest brought to you by Logitech. And hey, just everything that we do, including articles, reviews, stuff like that. So, with that being said, why don't we go ahead and just jump right into our guest today. And again, so D-Link, they're a company that's been on a couple of times, but hey, always a pleasure to have them on as we will be talking about, as I said, one of their best routers. So joining us by the phone is Mr. Nima Jamshidi, and he is the Senior Product Line Manager. So Nima, thank you for joining us here on Computer America.
Hi, Ben. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, our pleasure. So this is going to be a lot of fun because, again, when it comes to routers, it's kind of gone from that thing that you rent from the cable company to something that actually makes a difference, and that's kind of cool. That's a cool development to see. So before we get into, the product that you're here to talk about, why don't you give us a bit of background on D-Link for those of us who may not be familiar, and then a bit about yourself. How did you find yourself at D-Link?
Sure, yeah. So about me, I started to be in this industry, networking industry, about 10 years or 11 years ago. And I've been a D-Linker for a long time. I've actually been a D-Linker for different countries, and now I'm in the U.S. About D-Link, D-Link is a company where you can technically find A to Z networking products. So if you need, let's say, a Wi-Fi router, if you need a switch, if you need a camera, if you're a corporation or a business in need of some business products like switches or business APs, business access points, or unified wireless, D-Link provides all of those solutions, both on the consumer and business. So it's kind of a go-to place when you're in need of any networking products, whether it's consumer or business.
I got you. No, very cool. And of course, and just like you were mentioning, we could talk about every single one of your products for a while. It would take us a couple hours, but instead you are here to talk about a specific product, which, as you mentioned, referred to as the DIR867, but at the same time, something that may make a bit more sense because if you start to understand the numbers and the letters, you call it the AC1750 Wi-Fi router. So we're going to go ahead and break this down, but tell us a bit about, give us a bit of context for this router because it looks rather large. It's looks pretty fancy. Where does this kind of come in on the product line, and what was the reason for coming out with this particular router?
Sure. Yeah. So, as I mentioned, D-Link provides a full portfolio of wireless products. This is one of our family of the Wi-Fi routers. This is a 3x3 AC1750 dual band Wi-Fi router. This is a really great product for, let's call it small, medium, or medium to large homes and apartments who have a lot of devices. They're doing streaming, HD, streaming 4K media. So it's packed with a lot of new technologies like new MIMO. It comes with AC beamforming. It has a decent dual core processor, so to make sure there is no lag processing your data. And you mentioned the ID, which looks big and fancy. Yes, we do have high performance antennas to make sure you get the best range out of this router. And it does come with 4 gigabit wired Ethernet ports, so you can connect your wired devices. Let's say you have an Apple TV right next to your router and you don't want to connect it wirelessly, or you have your PlayStation connected to that, your TV, maybe you have a network attached storage you want to connect to. That gives you the benefit of providing connecting those devices through wired rather than wireless.
Right. So let's start to break down some of these, kind of slang here for the router because we think that a lot of people know what these mean, but we don't like to assume anything. So if you could give us some context on what is the importance of AC, because a lot of people out there, they may be looking at their home router and it may be, B or G or, 802.11.B, G or N. What is the significance of the 802.11.AC and, kind of why should people be interested in that?
So this is the standard. Back in the day, it all started with A, B, G, as you mentioned, and then N was really popular. And then 802.11ac came along and technically provides better coverage, but more speed, simultaneous communication between the wireless devices and your router. And it's not the late. So right now, actually, a lot of other new technologies are coming out, like 11ax is coming up pretty soon. Mm-hmm. Actually, D-Link announced their 11ax router during CES. We are working with developing this product and coming out sometimes around end of this year in Q4. But coming back to this product,
and by the way, that is so comforting to know that just invested a lot of money into my newest router, and good to know it's gonna be kind of old news here in a year. So thank you for that. But no, I know that standards definitely last longer than just a year, so pretty interesting. But again, please go ahead and continue with this router.
Sorry. This router is a 3x3 MU MIMO, which means it has 3 streams. So what happens, the MU MIMO part of it is for simultaneous communication between your router and your devices. Let's say you have 3 devices that are connected to this, 3 MU MIMO enabled devices to this router. And then this router gives you the opportunity to talk to those wireless devices, your client devices, simultaneously rather than talking to them one by one. That provides overall better experience and much more speed in your network, in your wireless network.
Gotcha.
Obviously, the high power, the high performance antenna and the beam forming and smart beam, they all also help with this process. And remember, this is all about overall network experience. We're not talking about just one device talking to this router. Obviously, in average homes, based on the research, there are 20 to 25 client devices connected to each router. This is based on a study done by Qualcomm. I think it was Q4 2017, if I'm not mistaken. So all of those devices talking to your router at the same time. Some of them may be streaming 4K TV video. Some of them maybe you're watching on YouTube. Maybe you're gaming at the same time. And a lot of smart devices that do talk to the router to turn them on, off, and whatnot. So this router is a great option for a great product, great wireless solution for that kind of scenario.
I'm starting to see why you mentioned that this was for a medium to large household because, I'm sure, a single person where they might have a computer, a TV, and a couple smart devices, this thing seems like it would really shine when you had to handle, multiple streaming or, kind of multiple just network intensive, processes. So makes perfect sense. Let's talk real quick about, the importance of 3x3. You've mentioned a couple times here. I'm assuming that's that's the amount of 3x3 channels. So it's just better at handling multiple data streams at the same time as opposed to 2x2.
Correct. Yes.
All right, perfect. So, and let's see what else. Oh yeah, and one thing that I've never personally kind of been clear on, I guess in some small way it makes sense to me, but talk about the importance of a processor built into a router because, in a computer you're doing a lot of different things, and a better processor will do them better. And lately I've been seeing a lot of routers kind of boast about, the speed of their processor built into their router. What does a better processor do for a router?
So the processor is to process all the data that's streaming and going through the router, obviously. And the better processor you have, the faster you can process those. Imagine all of those data, all the video content and all the other content that's going through this router, they need to be processed and then using the radio communicate with your client devices. If your processor is not fast enough, you'll definitely see lag in your router. And it's not just the processor, it's actually the whole package. We actually pick these components carefully because we want to make sure you get the best performance. It's a combination of the processor, the antennas, all the software features that come with it. You may have the best processor on your router, but if your software is not optimized, you may actually still see lag. So it is the whole package, and the processor from hardware perspective plays a really important role. But don't discount the software part and all of the other components.
Right, absolutely. So, and let's talk real quick about, if you're watching the video portion, we're kind of poking through the website as we talk here. Those big heavy-duty antennas that we mentioned earlier, they definitely look imposing, but I'm sure that they do serve a purpose. Talk about this feature you have. I believe it's called the Advanced AC Smart Beam. What kind of special measures did D-Link take with this router to combat those pesky kind of dead zones? I'm sure, maybe there's a bedroom at the other end of the house that just doesn't get as good of a Wi-Fi. We all deal with kind of dead zones. What measures has D-Link taken to help with that?
So, it really depends. It depends on so many different variables, like what's the if you have brick walls, for example, if you have thick glasses, if you have a lot of interference, what we do is we make sure that the Wi-Fi performance on this router is the best, And obviously, a lot of consumers might still find dead spots because their house is maybe a large, really large house. So to combat that, there are so many different solutions that, again, D-Link would have solutions for you guys. For example, a range extender. I don't want to move to the range extender product category, obviously,
Right.
but there is one thing I would like to mention. When you're picking the perfect router for you, because there is you should always find the right product for you. There are three questions I ask my friends and family usually when they ask me for advice. I ask them, what's your internet speed? How many devices do you have? And how big is your house? Based on the answer to these three questions, you can actually find the right product for you. You may have a very small house, but you have, let's say, 500 megabit per second internet connection. In that case, I wouldn't recommend a 2x2. I would actually recommend a 3x3 or 4x4, even though you get more range with 4x4. You may have just a 100 meg internet, but you have a larger home. In that case, I would recommend a 4x4. You see, based on these three questions, you can definitely tailor the best product, the right product for your consumers or for anyone out there.
Should people consider getting a new router, even if they already rent one from their internet company? Because many internet companies will rent you one. There's a monthly fee associated with it, and I guess a lot of people just never realize that you can go out and buy your own router. Should people consider that if they already get one through their provider?
Well, you'll be surprised. Actually, a lot of consumers don't even know that they can do that. They think they need to stay with their ISP provided gateway, and some of them pay them a monthly rental fee. So that's a great question. My recommendation is if you're experiencing dead spots, or let's put it this way, you're watching Netflix. Has it ever happened to you that you're watching Netflix and all of a sudden in the middle of watching the movie, the quality of the video goes down and it comes back up, it gets jittery, and then you get loading and a lot of lag experience? If you are one of those guys who is experiencing such Wi-Fi events, then the answer to your question is yes. They should definitely look into buying a better router. But maybe your internet connection is very slow and you don't have a lot of devices and your ISP gateway just works fine. In that case, I don't see the point of getting a new router. Why would you do that? Unless you're paying for rent, which then, yes, it absolutely makes sense to find the right router, just pay one-time fee and reduce your monthly payments to your ISP.
Right. Yeah. And I personally have done that as well. And that $5 a month doesn't seem like a lot, but when a good router will last you 2, 3, 4 years before you really need to swap it out, it kind of pays for itself and you get better equipment and hey, it's yours to keep. So makes very, very well said. And yeah, it's from my experience, the equipment that you get from your ISP, it's seen a lot of different homes. It's usually not the latest and greatest. It's something that they purchased in bulk, and maybe the refresh cycle was 3-4 years ago. We mentioned the 802.11 AC standard. Many ISPs are still renting out 802.11 BGN. They're renting out N, so they're not even kind of the latest and the greatest. They're just kind of what's convenient for the internet provider. So I would definitely echo what you just said, and if there is a monthly fee, look into getting one yourself. So I think one of the last things that we haven't talked about here when it comes to the hardware. Talk about the difference between 2.4 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz, this dual band feature. Where does that really shine? Where does that come into play?
Okay, so it's actually very simple. The 2.4 provides a better range. It actually travels better through the walls. but you get lower bandwidth. With the 5 gigahertz, you get a lot better bandwidth, you get lower range, it does not travel through the walls as good as 2.4. So that being said, when do I need those? The 2.4 is mostly used for smart devices nowadays because they don't need to have high bandwidth. It's just a simple communication of turning on my smart lights or uh, maybe just communicating with your Nest device to control the temperature in your house. Where the 5 gigahertz is something that's really great for streaming, for gaming. On your phone, you want to connect to the 5 gigahertz because most of the time, at least what I'm doing is I'm watching a lot of YouTube videos on my phone. So that's the benefit of 2.4 and 5, and each one can be used for the right purpose.
Right.
And also, sorry, one more thing I would like to
Sure.
add is since you have two radios, 2.4 and 5, you don't necessarily need to overload one of your radios by connecting all of your devices to that. So that actually unloads some of the devices on the 2.4 and the other part to the 5 gigahertz. So your overall network experience would actually be better.
Right, clears out a bit of that congestion because I find this with my phone as well. I'm close enough to my router that I can actually connect on the 5G bandwidth and I get much, much faster, not just because it's 5G, but because, it's not competing against the microwave. It's, just a more open channel. So all right. So with that being said, let's say we've convinced someone. They are excited. They have never been so excited about routers in their lives. They go out and pick one up. Talk about the user experience of setting one of these up because not everyone is a network engineer, and I more than anyone can appreciate that. How hard is it to set one of these things up?
It's actually pretty simple. So I remember the old days where you needed to go out and buy a router and come home, connect to the IP address, set it up. For me, it was easy because I was a techie guy, but I could definitely see that maybe my parents weren't able to do that at all. Nowadays, it's just very simple. You download the D-Link Wi-Fi app, you connect to the Wi-Fi. All it asks you is whether you want to keep the wireless name or SSID, or what we call it, the same as what's printed on the router, which is secure and unique for you, or you want to change it to something that you recognize later and you want to have a more user-friendly password. You set that up and set up a password for your router, and that's it. You're done. So technically, because these routers come with a secured wireless SSID and password,
Mm-hmm.
you may not even need to set it up. I don't recommend that, but it's pre-set up technically.
Right. And, we always at least recommend changing up the password and the username just, for security's sake. But yeah, the routers have definitely gotten to the point where they are almost plug and play. It's, really, really that simple. And so I think with that, we're going to kind of pivot a little bit because, as we mentioned, the name of this is the AC 1750 Wi-Fi router. So obviously AC stands for 802.11.AC, and and kind of the numbers after that signify, I guess, kind of not really the quality because I'm sure all the routers are built well, but more the performance of the individual ones. If you wouldn't mind, if you could compare, kind of when you would consider getting the 1750 versus something like the 2600, which is another router from D-Link, but this one, has big flashy banners, great graphics, ultimate streaming and gaming. Talk about, just kind of when you would consider going even beyond the 1750.
Mhm. So if you don't consider the cost at all and just talk about the technology, it goes back to what I just mentioned earlier, where we asked the three key questions: your internet speed, how many devices you have connected, and how large is your home. with a 4x4 AC 2600, obviously, you get better range. You can talk to more devices at the same time. And your overall network experience, if you have a lot of devices and you have a pretty fast internet connection, would be much better than the AC 1750. But I personally like to make sure my consumers or whoever buys D-Link routers get the right product for them. So with that being said, if you want to future-proof your home router, I would definitely go with the 4x4. The 3x3 is really great for average home users with a lot of devices, let's call it 20 to 25 connected devices, and medium to medium large home.
Right. And just to clear something up, I'm not saying it here, probably means it's not there, but the AC 1750, does that have a USB port for external hard drives support? Because that's something that the router that we're currently using, I'm finding myself actually using more and more, and it's the idea that you attach a hard drive to your router and it becomes, well, network attached storage, of course, and you can kind of share TV, share movies and things like that. Is that supported strictly on the AC 2600, or is there support for that on the 1750?
It is supported on the 2600, but it's not supported on the AC 1750 that we offer right now. That's a great question.
Gotcha.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, no, it's something that I really do like to see in routers. So very cool that the 2600 definitely does have it. So I think with that we're just flat running out of time, and I will say I'll kind of give you the last word, Nima. What's if people want to find out more, where can they go? And also talk about some of the prices of at least the AC 1750.
Sure. So this router can be found in major retailers and e-tailers nationwide. Right now, the price point of this router is $89, and I guess that answers your question. That's it.
No. And of course, we'll have a link to this in the show notes as well. If people want to find out more, they can go there and poke around. But it's... I know routers isn't the flashiest thing when it comes to computers, but it's something that if you've upgraded every other part of your system, it's, a lot of people may have overlooked it, and it could be just that one little bottleneck that keeps you from really utilizing a lot of your other equipment. So again, I really appreciate the expertise that D-Link brings to the show, and the expertise that you've brought to the show, Nima. So I will say thank you so much for joining us here on Computer America, and again, thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
Our pleasure. Have a great one. Bye-bye. All right, everyone, and there he goes. So if you want to, of course, find out more, we will have a link to all of this. Well, a link to D-Link at computeramerica.com in the show notes. So we have about a minute or so left before we head on over into the next segment of the show. But hey, why don't we go ahead and tease some of the stories that we are going to be doing here on the program. And all right, so we don't have, I don't want to say we have like 7 stories that I really want to get to. And some of these are just plain weird, including this one from Time. That's right, Time. They kind of covered a story, and it's not very long, but the implications are kind of creepy. Where police officers in Florida, because where else would they do this? Police officers in Florida, they went to a funeral home to unlock a dead man's phone with his finger. Yeah, that's creepy. So we'll talk about that and the implications behind the idea of, even if you're dead, they can kind of hold you like a Weekend at Bernie's kind of deal and get into your software. Also, we have reports of, more than a third of U.S. TV consumption is now online. Another indication that a la carte online television is the way to go. And we're going to talk about that. Quantum radar, yeah, you've heard it right, quantum radar. So a way to detect things that doesn't use traditional radar, but still detects things as a radar would. Talk about that. And not last but not least, but another one is Amazon is reportedly working on a home robot. So folks, if you want to hear any of those and more here at Computer America, just stay tuned and we'll be right back right after this.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour as we continue on here, and we are going to get into computer and technology news. So why don't we go ahead and jump right into it? So, computer and tech news brought to you by OWC. So why don't we go ahead and start with this one because I find it the weirdest one, and hey, I like weird. So this is from Time once again, and yeah, it has to do with the idea that police officers in Largo, Florida, went and, well, found a not so unique way to unlock a phone. So this one... So yeah, again, according to Time, Florida authorities went to a funeral home and used a dead man's finger to try to unlock his cell phone as part of their investigation, because that's not creepy whatsoever. And 30-year-old Linus Phillip was killed by a Largo police officer last month after authorities say he tried to drive away before an officer could search him, which is unfortunately an event that happens far too often here. Well, at least we hear about it too often in the media. But at the funeral home, 2 detectives held the man's hand up while the hand up to the phone's fingerprint sensor, but could not unlock it. Philip's fiancée, Victoria Armstrong, said that she felt violated and disrespected. I'm sure that if unfortunately remains could feel the same, yeah, they probably would as well. Legal experts mostly agree that what the detectives did was legal, but they question whether it was appropriate. And yeah, we're going to talk in just a second about, kind of why it's legal. But Charles Rose, a professor at the Stetson University College of Law, tells the Tampa Bay Times that dead people can't assert their Fourth Amendment protections because you can't own property when you're dead. Seems pretty safe. but those rights could apply to whoever inherits the property. So, yeah, a couple of things. This is why, for a lot of situations we hear on the show, when you do the fingerprint sensor, when you do the finger scanner, it's convenient. There's no two ways about it. All you have to do is push a button you were probably going to push anyways, and yeah, your phone unlocks. It's really like turning your brain off at that instance. The only other way you can do it is a 4 to 6 digit PIN number. But as we've discussed here on the show, if you want the true security, what constitutes a password is not your fingerprint. Fingerprints have been for 100 years or so considered completely within the right for law enforcement to take. Think of the paper with the ink, and you put your finger in the ink, and then you press your finger onto a piece of paper. They take your fingerprints when you are convicted of a crime or just, otherwise booked by authorities. Well, same principle applies to when they have to unlock your phone. If they can take your fingerprint and they can unlock your phone with it, hey, all the better, nothing illegal, makes perfect sense. But if you need that 4 to 6 digit PIN code to, trust me, I was about to say PIN number, that's not right. PIN, then that constitutes a password, or think of like a combination to a safe. You don't technically have to give that up. That is indeed your Fourth Amendment right. And, so this is where we get into the idea that if you truly want your phone to be safe, and again, we're not helping criminals here, but if you truly want things to stay private, then putting your phone or taking away the phone's ability to read your fingerprint to access the content, that makes it one more hurdle for law enforcement to actually have to get into your phone, be that through, constitutional issues or whatever. But suffice to say, as convenient as fingerprints are, they're not as strictly secure as a 6-digit PIN number on your phone. And hey, there's a whole nother side of this when we talk about whether or not the police or law enforcement have the ability to actually get into your phone. Because hey, we've been hearing a lot about software that is readily available that hacks into iPhones. That's it's a pretty common occurrence in the past year or so. But if you want to keep things safe, don't have a fingerprint. It turns out in this case, it didn't really work. I think the iPhone is a bit smarter than to just take, someone's lifeless finger and try to unlock things. There's something like, I don't know exactly how it works, but yeah, obviously it didn't work, but they did try. And that might be a problem. So it's strange. Definitely felt like I had to bring it up because it just goes to show that fingerprint scanners are really something law enforcement is getting behind because, again, they have access to it as opposed to a password. So there you go. Police in Florida tried to unlock a man's phone using his lifeless finger in a morgue. That's not a good look, but there you go. All right, so with that being said, why don't we go ahead and move on to our next story here? Because, hey, that one was just... All right, so our next story that we're going to do, why don't we talk about... All right, how about this one? More than a third of United States television, US TV, consumption is now online. That's pretty cool. Because, hey, when you're talking about breaking the norms, what used to be sustainable is... Yeah, what used to be actually, I'm sorry, we may not actually cover this. Actually, I'm just catching the date on this thing, and I don't think the date is particularly right. Where this thing is dated just horribly, horribly late. So actually, let's go ahead and move on to a different story because I didn't see that one was almost a decade old, which again probably isn't, but just to be safe. All right. Amazon. They have had a couple of problems lately, be it in bad publicity when it comes to their warehouses, be it fears of antitrust, be it the very public fight with the White House, be it just any number of things. Amazon, by all accounts, well, other than their stock price, is having a rough go of it PR-wise. So this is why, this is a pretty cute story. And the idea that, well, Amazon may be coming to your home, nothing new, but in the form of a robot. Hey, because why not? So this is an article from TechCrunch, Brian Heater, and yeah, that's right. You heard right. Amazon is reportedly working on a home robot. Let's hope it can do the dishes, a la Rosie. But for Amazon's latest hardware trick, the company has apparently been working on a home robot under the codename Vesta. Vesta, Vesta. So that nugget comes via Bloomberg sources who report that the online retail giant expects to start trialing the device in employees' homes this year, with plans to launch it to consumers as early as 2019. All right, so before we get any further into this, my immediate gut reaction is this something people will want? And I'm sure that Amazon will tell you, but of course, people have been wanting this since they first saw the Jetsons. People have been wanting this since, hey, the beginning of the idea of robots. But my bigger question is, because we have been talking ad nauseum about the idea of large corporations getting too much data on individuals via Facebook or any other social media data collecting service, well, I don't doubt that people would appreciate a robot in their home. We already have the Roomba. It is something that people generally enjoy. I've seen cats riding them. That is the quintessential people are okay with this technology. But the other side of the token is, are people okay with robots branded by Amazon? Because Amazon, much like Facebook, much like Google, much like any other large company out there, Microsoft, Apple, just to name two more, just so we make everyone mad. All of those companies collect data, build profiles so that they can better target you with advertising or products or services. Nothing new there. It being in your television, it being in your laptop, it being in your phone, all these things are pretty acceptable because it's like you're peering into a window, you are feeding information in, but in general, it's not really actively gathering information about you. When it comes to robots, though, they have that ability. They have that ability to, and especially with learning and artificial intelligence and machine learning, blah, 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 they have the ability to send continuous data streams about where you are, what you're doing, what it's doing, its surroundings, and what you ask of it, all these things. Think of all of the privacy complaints we've heard about the Amazon Echo line of products and the Google Home line of products, and amplify that times 100 because now it can move and walk and kind of go places. That is a real concern people should have. So, but to continue on with this, they said that the project has apparently been in the works for a number of years, but things are finally starting to take off as the company lists openings for a number of jobs in and around robotics. And they said that no word precisely on what such a robot would do, and naturally, Amazon is not commenting. Probably for the better. It's just... robots, again, they are sorely needed in a lot of places. They will be a workforce of the future that needs to be there. They will make lives convenient. People like convenience. But do they like it at the cost of all-out surveillance? We need to ask Amazon just exactly how these robots would communicate. So they said that the home market has been a tough one for the robotics industry to crack, a feat not really accomplished by any devices beyond the Roomba and derivative cleaning robots. A number of assistant robots have bubbled up over the years, essentially adding moving parts to a smart speaker category. Ask Japan, the place where robots are most sorely, desired, needed, and starting to be implemented. And even those things are just glorified Skype video call machines on wheels. That's really all you kind of got. So, anywho, other companies like Sphero spinoff Misty Robotics are hoping to bring more advanced functionality to the market, though they've given themselves what equates to a 10-year runway. Yeah, we're going to need something a little bit faster than 10 years. But while the industry appears bullish about the future of robots in the home, it may well take a tech giant like Amazon to really crack the code. And as I said, as they did with the Echo a few years back. I think just over the past couple of months, though, again, with the Cambridge Analytica, with the Facebook, with the data, with the shadow profiles, people are very conscious about their digital presence, and throwing in a smart speaker on legs might not be the absolute best way to broach the subject. So, anywho, Vesta, on the other hand, is said to be the product of Lab 126, which is the Amazon R&D center that gave the world the Echo and the bevy of Fire devices. So if you're watching the video portion, you can see here, this is actually Jeff Bezos with a different kind of robot. This is not a prototype of what they would consider putting into people's homes, but you can see robotics are not something unheard of for Bezos to pursue. So check that out. Okay. I'd say if you are... I'd say if you're in your 20s, and certainly if you're younger, of dating age, maybe a little bit older, 30s, you've probably most likely definitely given online dating a try. And if you say that you haven't, you are a liar. I'll just put it that way. Now, something that we saw with, I wouldn't necessarily call it a dating service because it was not so much dating as it was adultering, but it was like Ashley Madison or something like that. It was a large data breach that happened that showed a lot of people's profiles, a lot of people's profiles and data and first and last name were leaked because they kept them on servers and databases that were open to anyone to go find, and essentially a service that said that they would keep your information completely private and safe, and just not completely private, safe, anonymous, and you would never know that you were on there. They were shown to be frauds. They actually kept a lot of data about people from the dating site. Again, one explicitly about a dating site that was to let you remain mostly anonymous. Well, we have a similar situation, although this one is not as sordid as Ashley Madison, but Match.com, a glitch reactivated a ton of old profiles, raising concerns about user data, saying that the zombie profiles are further proof that data legislation remains ambiguous and the internet is still forever. Ain't that the truth? So, on a recent Sunday, creative director Jason Debiak was having breakfast with his family in New Jersey when something strange happened, saying that I was having an adorable breakfast with my family, my 2-year-old daughter, and my wife. Something came up on my phone, and I usually try not to check my email, but he checked it and he said that he had 10 new matches on Match.com. Essentially, the picture he tried to paint there was he's taken, no longer interested in dating, and you can see where this could cause conflict, where it would appear he is looking for something on Match.com. So he said that he So his long forgotten and long deleted dating profile from over a decade ago had suddenly been reactivated. And he said that his whole profile is there, everything. And judging by the messages he received, Debiak says it seemed like the account had been reopened for about a week, saying that he had contacted customer service, saying that, oh, we're sorry that you got the email notification, we'll turn off email notification. And they said, no, we don't actually, it's not about the notification. It was about, the fact that his profile 15 years from 15 years ago was still being stored and ready to go, and at some point accidentally able to be flipped on and turned and reactivated. So a Match Group spokesperson confirmed that a limited number of old accounts had been accidentally reactivated recently, and that any account affected received a password reset. And they said that the company can retain certain information associated with your account even after you close it. But the Match Group spokesperson also told The Verge, that the company plans to roll out a new privacy policy in the next month or so to comply with the General Data Protection Regulation. That's a huge thing in the EU. If you haven't heard about it, definitely brief yourself up on it as best you can. Essentially, it means that companies, there's like three real tenets to what's known as the GDPR, and it's essentially you have a right to be forgotten. So if there's something on Google or any other service, you have a right to tell them to take it down if it's about you. You have a right to ask for any data that a company may have pertaining to you. They have to provide that. And I think there's one other where it's like if you give them, so many days, they have to delete everything they have about you. Essentially, taking back data from people who have collected it. Not illegally, again, perfectly legitimate ways of collecting data, just ways of handling it are changing. So they said that in the past, it hasn't been uncommon for dating websites to use and retain your data for research, marketing, or, as Match.com's current privacy policy says, record-keeping integrity. And let's see. So let's go ahead and skip through here a bit because we're not going to, of course, cover every single little part of this. But it's just safe to say that, like Ashley Madison, like Match.com, like many, many others out there, companies are going to save your data. What you may think is innocuous or just, not really important to you or anyone else, companies are going to see that, they're going to take that, they're going to collect it, and then potentially, even though it was 15 years later for this individual, they're going to find a way to use it. They're going to find a way to utilize it as best they can, and then, either try to advertise to you or other people just like you. They're going to pick apart everything that you input and try to spin it into some money. It's kind of the way we have allowed the internet to work. And yeah, again, it's starting to change again with the GDPR, but at the same time, it hasn't changed yet. And I really do assume even after that, it won't change all that much. It will change if you are proactive about it, but a lot of people, and I mean 99.9% of people out there, will not be proactive about it. So just be careful. What was on the internet is still on the internet in one form or another. So let's see. So to wrap this up, last couple of paragraphs here, saying that zombie profiles can also affect current users who are putting themselves in a vulnerable position only to be confronted with people who aren't actually looking to date. Saying that, quote, I felt like it was a little bit of a violation of privacy for me and misleading to the people who are on Match.com right now looking for people. I don't blame those people who saw my profile and, hey, tried to message me, but I'm sorry, I'm happily married. Again, end quote from the gentleman whose profile was reactivated. So, data retention policies, of course, vary, but at the same time, transparency and control over your own data, it's it's in the works. So if you're on Match.com and you saw a bunch of new people pop up all around you, maybe, just maybe, they are these quote-unquote zombie profiles. I recommend looking for a smartphone. If there's not a smartphone in the picture, it may be from 15 years ago. So there you have it. All right. So there's that one. All right, let's do our last headline real quick. Try to break this down as best we can. I am not an expert in really quantum anything. Quantum confusion, I got that down lock. But quantum radar is to be tested for the first time outside of a laboratory. And this is the University of Waterloo is working on a new project that could take quantum radar from the lab to the field. And the project is focused on the use of this technology for surveillance in the Arctic. Seems pretty cool. Now, quantum radar technology, a remote sensing method based on quantum entanglement, has so far remained theoretical, with experiments only conducted in laboratories. But now, again, the University of Waterloo, they're developing a new approach that could see the technology deployed for the first time outside of the lab. That's pretty cool. And they said that the project will allow it, quote, this project will allow us to develop the technology to help move quantum radar from the lab to the field. Pretty darn cool. And that was a faculty member for the Institute for Quantum Computing and a professor in the Department of Chemistry. You know, it's funny because we were just talking to our Linux correspondent, Marcel Gagnier, and he actually lives, again, kind of down the street from the Waterloo Institute for Quantum Computing. So, hey, small world. Anyways, according to the University of Waterloo, if successful, the new technology would help radar operators cut through heavy background noise and isolate objects, including stealth aircraft and missiles, with unparalleled accuracy. It's pretty darn cool. And that they received a grant of about $2.7 million from the Canadian National Defense. That's right, Canada has armed forces, and not just Mounties. Pretty darn cool. And let's see. So yeah, we're not gonna have time to get through the entire article, but let's just say that let's see if we can pick one out here. Quote: in the Arctic, space weather such as geomagnetic storms and solar flares interfere with radar operations and make the effective identification of objects more challenging. By moving from traditional radar to quantum radar, we hope to not only cut through the noise, but also to identify objects that have been specifically designed to avoid detection. So quantum radar, and you know, there are diagrams of it out there where I'm, again, not an expert. Let's see if we can pull one of these up real quick. Quantum radar, something that is designed to pick up on stealth craft and things like that. So let's see, it's easy to open it. All right. So for anyone out there watching the video portion, there we have it up there. And essentially you have entangled photons, and that's about all I got. Anyways, short and skinny of it, they're hoping to use this because it is much more accurate and effective, especially in places such as the Arctic that have to deal with electromagnetic radiation from things like, you see it all the time with the aurora borealis, or just, hey, the general poles found up there in the north. So hopefully it goes well for them. And yeah, hey, a lot of money is of course going into it. So with that being said, why don't we go ahead and just say that, hey, we are just about done here on Computer America. So hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us here on the show. It's been a lot of fun. And again, thank you to our guest D-Link for joining us here, because hey, we never get to talk enough about routers. So with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a show dedicated to computer and technology news. We'll let you know if that changes, but up until then, hey, that's what we're planning. If you missed any part of today's show, please feel free to check out anywhere podcasts are heard, and of course on our YouTube page, because you can find the show in its entirety there as well. Well, and hey, if you want to listen to it live, you can of course check out our video stream, or check us out on IRN. In the meantime, everyone, once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and be sure to catch us same time, same place next week. Wow, tomorrow. So until then, have a great day. Thank you so much. And yeah, have a good one. Bye, everyone.